Into the Badlands, Season 2, Episode 6, Leopard Stalks in Snow. Really good episode. Already starting off coughing. But really fun episode. Unfortunately, some of the things that I kind of expected, as things kind of continued on, there was some stuff that I was kind of expecting. Most of it I wasn't. But there were quite a few crappy things that happened to the characters in this episode. Like, all the good stuff that I was kind of looking forward to from the last episodes. Like, finally, Vel ends up escaping. M.K. took off. He has control of his powers. Ava even goes after him, so they're kind of on the run together. We might end up seeing a reunion between M.K. and Sunny, which does actually happen in this episode. All these good things I was really looking forward to. We even got a surprise reveal early on in the episode that Bajie was actually a part of the Abbots. He was with them, and I thought it was a great way how they revealed it, because I honestly thought the reason they were there is because they were going to end up going for either the woman or the little girl, and we'd find out that one of them has powers too, and it ends up being Bajie, and I was like, oh, that's a pretty cool reveal. So a lot of cool stuff in this episode, and then it keeps going towards the end, and I knew something had to happen. I'm like, with what they're doing with the Widow and Quinn, I kind of had, like, somewhere in my head, I was like, they're probably going to happen where they run across each other, where Vel ends up running across someone, and it just doesn't play out, because the Widow is like the only other main Baron really in the show, and otherwise Vel would just be kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And I was just like, this isn't, I knew somehow this wasn't going to work out too well. So, of course, as soon as she gets there, I'm like, I'm a little worried, but we'll see what happens. And then things continue to play out, and they make their agreement to kill off all the other Barons. But of course, before Quinn will officially let that happen, he wants Vel and Henry back with him. And it was kind of an interesting point getting to the scene where, Vel is, called into the room, and unfortunately she's not able to do anything with the book. Who knows if the Widow will let her keep it or not. And I'm very curious, because they haven't, that was like a big thing as to why M.K. was involved in all this craziness, but we never really got the answer to the book, so it was kind of cool that they brought it back, because I honestly forgotten about, the whole reason things kind of kicked off. So it was cool that they brought it back, and maybe we will see it play a part in this season. There's only like 4 episodes left, which is already nuts, but maybe we'll see it play a part, or maybe we'll get like a big clue as to how it's going to play a part in season 3. But it was nice to see them just bring it back in general. And so we have this sequence where, it's going back and forth, and then the Widow, I don't know what that was. At first I thought she was just going to like knock her out or something. But it was like, I put my faith in you once, and you tried to convince, my girls to go against me. It kind of starts at the right-hand woman, and then it was just going to make its way down, I'm sure. And, the Widow wasn't too happy about that. And she's like, I put my faith in you once, and it kind of failed. So, basically it was just kind of like, because you did that to me before, I get to do this to you. That's kind of how she put it a little bit, because it was like, you kind of screwed me over that one time, and I was really trying not to be super pissed off, but really got to work with Quinn, and he wants you back. So if you can't trust me, then maybe you can be with someone who truly loves you. And it just sucked. I was like, man, I want to say I lose respect for her, because I was like, that's just a harsh thing to do. And then it's just like, I don't know. It's really hard for me to say, like, it's a terrible thing for her to have done that. It sucks for Vel and Henry, without a doubt, particularly Vel. Henry's a baby, so not much of an effect. It would just suck to see him grow up that way. But it's just like, for Vel, who's truly living in the situation and recognizes how crappy things are, it sucks for her. But it's like, man, it's almost, kind of what the Widow's doing is literally like for the greater good, that sort of thing, like one versus the many. And it's just like, man, I want to hate her. It was like, because I just want to lose all sorts of respect, but I'm like, I just can't, because the reason she's doing this is, of course, she doesn't want to die, but she knows that all the people that she saved, she is like the one Baron who is nicer to everyone, which they keep bringing up. Man, I forgot the girl's name, but she talks to Tilda for quite a while, and I'm like, man, she's the one who's constantly like, yeah, she's cool, but she's still just like the other Barons and stuff. And we actually get a pretty cool backstory. I thought for sure, the way that story was going, I was like, holy crap, is she the one that killed the Widow's husband? But it's like, no, it was definitely the Widow. So, that gets revealed. But they also end up kissing, and I'm like, okay, we'll see how this plays out, because this girl, even before they kiss, I was like, she's calling a judgment. And they even talk about it right after. And I'm just like, I don't know. I was already thinking that beforehand, because that's why she went there. She it was in a good way when she went to the conclave, but I'm like, that was just step one, and I think we all knew that as soon as it happened. Odessa is her name. And with her, you know, the stuff she was saying early on, and then Odessa comes back in this episode, like, I'm taking off. And it's like, you know, she's just like all the other Barons, where she still sends girls out to fight. And I'm just like, I feel like that's not the same thing. It's kind of the same thing. I get where she's coming from on the, you know, it's one of those things where, like, on the surface, you could just make a blatant statement. And it's like, yeah, I get it. But much like kind of what the Widow did, is like, you gotta look deeper into some of that stuff, and they do have to defend themselves. Especially now, considering everything going on, you know, everything that fell apart at the conclave, they definitely have to defend themselves. But it's just like, man, like, the one person she had to fall for this season, and it's like this girl who's constantly saying, like, yeah, the woman that you really, really care about, I just don't like her, and I feel like she's really bad. Like, she's just really, it's like some dark side, some Star Wars stuff, like she's clouding her judgment, and I'm just like, oh man, I just don't think it's going to end too well. And considering the show, it could go perfectly, and Odessa still dies, because you never know. But we'll see what happens there. I was just like, I don't know if I like her getting too close, because, you know, she, like, I just feel like it's going to lead to some sort of betrayal somewhere down the line. So we'll see how that plays out. But I was like, all right, they ended up, you know, getting way closer than I was expecting. I certainly didn't see that coming, but I was just like, okay, we'll see where this goes. But, you know, we'll have to see if it works out. Even if it does, like I said, Odessa could probably end up dying anyway, just because of the series itself. But we'll see where that goes. Of course, Vale, unfortunately, is back with Quinn, or at least she will be by the next episode officially. And, you know, then we have the other side of the story, going back to the Abbots and Sunny, Bajie, and M.K. And it was pretty cool. You know, it starts off simple. It's like, you know, the episode actually starts still with Bajie and Sunny. And so they're doing their thing. They actually take the woman and the young girl. They take them both to this doctor. And it's pretty easy. It's like, I'll give you guys some gas, no big deal, and you go along your way. He mentions that you can't get to, no one gets through checkpoints without being in chains, and they don't really touch back on that, because I thought he'd have, like, another way to, like, go underground, you know, some random thing. It's like, I know another way to get you in. But that never comes up. So at this point, the checkpoint seems like a bad idea, unless they can find a way to, you know, kind of fake it through. So, you know, they kind of gave a clue there, like, that's not going to be as easy as they want it to be. But things continue on, and so we get the reveal of Bajie, and then we get to this ending, and that's when things just start to compound. It's just like, okay, first off, we have a really epic fight sequence. So the Abbots end up catching up to M.K. and Ava. Right before that, though, M.K. sees his hometown, oddly enough, in Wired magazine. I thought that was really funny for some reason, but he sees, like, the really old version of his old town. They talk about, you know, a little bit about kind of whatever happened. I've never thought about this before, but what the heck did happen in this universe? You know, obviously we know it's like post-apocalyptic, but what made it post-apocalyptic never occurred to me, because especially in this episode where it's like, it was a winter sort of thing. The structure's still there, but the people aren't, so it makes me assume that it was some sort of like nuclear fallout sort of deal. But, you know, it's hard to say, and it's clear that it's been years and like centuries, or at least a century. So it's like, it's been a super long time, and I would assume centuries, because they've been Barons for a very long time. So it just made me curious when they were talking about it this episode, and this is super random, but I wanted to mention, because I rewatched the fight from the last episode, when Sunny was fighting all the mech people. They were fighting on like a bunch of double-decker buses, and it finally dawned on me when I was rewatching the fight, like, this might not even take place in the United States, which I just assumed, honestly, because of like the plantation deal and slavery and stuff. That's why I just assumed it was in the States. And when I saw that, I was like, this might not even take place in the United States. So that's just random. Me theorizing on like the whole world building that they've been doing. I was like, I didn't notice that before, but it was a double-decker bus. It's all over the place in that last fight. So it just caught my attention when I rewatched the fight. Like, this might not be, you know, taking place on even the side of the planet I thought it was on. So just wanted to mention that, because obviously it's all theories. Like, the actual end of the world stuff is irrelevant to the actual story. But obviously every time they talk about it, or it's still there, it's like, you know, they had Bajie doing the drugs, and he was like looking at porn, and then at the end it was like Wired magazine and stuff. And I was like, man, it's very interesting, especially with Azra being on Wired magazine. It means it wasn't something that was made after, you know, the chaos. It was made before that. So I just thought it was a very interesting thing. So I'm excited to see where that goes. Of course, I think that won't take place until like season 3. I think we'll finally start to get answers as to what Azra truly is and where it's at. And, you know, I think it's just going to be a good place for M.K. and Sunny to find. I don't know if it'll be super special. I think it's just the journey of getting there to finally like the happy ending sort of deal. But That doesn't come in this episode because we have a crazy fight with the Abbots. Sunny has to fight that main dude again, and they did some really good stuff in that fight sequence. It was like a lot of wire work, and mostly the wire work was the good guys getting kicked or punched super freaking far. That was pretty much all the wire work. Like, they were trying to fight, and it wasn't working. Sunny was fighting like the main dude, and one of the things I love about the show is that Sunny's like the greatest fighter in the show, or at least one of the greatest, if it's not one of the other Barons. And yet he's still not the greatest fighter in the show, because we have the Abbots, who are epic fighters, and then you add like magical super strength and stuff, and it's like, well, they're the best fighters in the whole series. So it's really cool to watch him as like one of the greatest fighters in the show get beat up, because especially because the guy wasn't even using his powers in the beginning. He was just like he was just fighting. He was just using his skills, and so it was tough for him. And MK and Ava were fighting the other two people, and it was just chaotic. And so they're surrounded, and MK can't use his powers, and Sunny's like, that's the only way we can get out of this. So Ava has to use hers. She takes on the other two Abbots, and they have to take on just the main guy, and he was whooping them both up. And she's having a fight. Like, she was a good fighter too, and unfortunately it still didn't work for her by the time she kind of got triple teamed. But she was a good fighter. They're dodging her moves, she's dodging theirs, and it's like, they're kind of on even ground, so they have to dodge and stuff, because it's kind of like just a normal person fighting a normal person. Plus they have, which we see towards the end, they have their special moves that can kill each other in one hit. So they have to dodge and actually fight. But the other dude, once he went like full superpower mode, he didn't even need to move. Like, he was fighting MK and Sunny, and he like basically backhands Sunny, and MK punches him, and then he kicks him straight in the head, and he just took a hit, and I was like, oh, he doesn't even have to dodge at this point, because he's so much better than both of them. And it was crazy. Like, he just kicks Sunny into like the little display. He basically uppercuts MK and knocks him out, and then they all team up on the girl, and they form like that triangle formation thing, and they took her down. And unfortunately, when they like blew her into the stairs, she got impaled. So sadly, Ava ends up dying in this episode, but not before she ends up killing the female Abbott, like by piercing through her neck. And honestly, that was a super cool move, but I really wish it was Bajie, because I was hoping that when he came in with the truck, that we'd find out that he still knew how to control his powers. So I was like, oh, that's unfortunate that it wasn't him. I was kind of hoping, like, holy crap, he has control too. But we don't get to see that. He's kind of in the same situation as MK, where he doesn't have his power, or it just doesn't affect him when he bleeds, because of course that happens with MK early on, when his face gets slammed straight into the glass, which is a pretty crazy opening. I thought it was the Abbots in the beginning. It was like, oh, it's just this dude who had the farm. And it kind of sucked. I was like, man, this really sucks, because like, I know why MK stole the carrot and stuff, and like I was about to like chop his head off, and then Ava kills him, and I was just like, that kind of sucked. Like, it's just kind of a little situation. It could have easily been diffused. And it's like, nope, that guy got his head, just boom, he gets impaled. And it's like, man, that sucks. He died over a carrot. So that just popped into my head. When that first happened, I was like, holy crap, it's about to be crazy. And it's like, nope, he's dead. He just died over a carrot. And I was just like, man, that's a crappy way to go. But jumping to the actual ending, I was hoping that we'd see Bajie use his powers, but doesn't really have them. And we'll see how that plays out, because of course we don't know what's going on with MK. He talks about what happened where he saw his mother and how he killed, like, she died in his arms. I'm assuming, he killed her as well as everybody else, just like he did, like, the whole first season, just killing people left and right. So I'm assuming that even though he saw that horrible image again when he went into, kind of his own mind, he was still able to defeat his darker side, which is why it doesn't come out instantly when he's cut. So I'm assuming he can regain control, if he goes through training again, which he might be forced to do. Who knows? Because they have to take Sunny back, because of course all this crazy epic fighting and stuff, they do end up surviving, and they even killed the main dude, which was like some crazy, he even said finish me. I was like, this is straight up Mortal Kombat. But Bajie, is fighting him, and he does like the neck pressure points, and it like takes his power away and freezes him in place. So Sunny stabs him through, and then he does like the Kill Bill 5-point palm exploding heart technique on him, and I was like, what the F was that? Because it didn't take him down. It was like he was still standing there, and then he's like, finish me. And so Sunny like just slices his head, which was crazy. I thought he was just gonna like maybe decapitate him, because they chop clean heads off on shows all the time, but it's pretty special when they do like the half head slice. So his head, the piece of his head falls off, and I'm like, okay. But it did that crazy heart thing in like super speed. At the point of it happening, I was like, did Sunny even realize it happened? I couldn't even tell because I'm like, clearly it was at super speed, so I didn't even know if Sunny knew what happened to him. But kills the guy. I'm like, is this gonna be the guy transferred his powers to him or something crazy like that? Is it gonna even be relevant in this episode? Like, how long is it gonna take before this crazy heart thing comes up? And then it only took a few minutes. They had like barely a moment to even mourn, or at least MK barely had a moment to mourn over Ava. And then Sunny is about to say something, and then he's like frozen in place, and then he collapses. And so, based on the promo, he's now trapped where MK was, kind of within his own mind. But instead of fighting his darker self, he's just fighting all the people that he's killed off in the past. And there's some girl kind of guiding him through his memory. So who knows what the heck is going to happen with him. But Bajie and M.K. actually have to go back to the Abbots, which is very unfortunate because, you know, they killed two. Ava went with them, and so she's dead now. And there's only the one guy is left alive. They might capture him. I would assume not. I assume he took off. Unless he straight up died when he got hit by the car. But I would assume not, because the other dude, the main guy, he got hit and then he just went into like power stance. So I was like, I'm fine. So I doubt that guy is dead. He might not make it back before they do because they're in the truck. So we'll see how that plays out. But crazy freaking way to end the episode. Vale is going back with Quinn. MK, you know, he's reunited with Sunny, but unfortunately he has to go back to the Abbots. Bajie has to go back to the Abbots after who knows how long. So they have to fight against them, which I'm excited to see that. And then there were a couple other little things that happened in this episode as well. Particularly, I want to say the first maybe 5 to 10 minutes. I don't know. They did a lot of slow motion in the opening sequence, so I don't remember how long. First off, love the opening sequence. Great opening sequence with the slow motion and Lydia just, you know, kind of walking around in like just bodies and bits and stuff all over the place. And then, you know, Quinn comes up to her. He doesn't kill her. And then they take her down into like the train station, and they have the craziest freaking conversation. And once again, with Quinn, who the F knows what's about to happen in the scene with him, because he's talking to her. He's like, here's a knife, kill me. And of course she does it because she wants him dead. And of course he stops her and he's like, you know, that's why I loved you. And so he like touches his blood. And I don't know, it was like some vampire stuff where he's just like, boom, you're infected and you love me again. And they start making out and I'm just like, I don't understand either of them anymore. So he's crazy. Apparently she's just as crazy as him because she instantly went back to this guy. And I was just like, I don't understand how that just worked. But I guess they're fine. I don't know. We'll see what happens in the next episode. But I was just like, holy crap. Like, once again, like, just 2 episodes in a row, like, somebody up and kissed this dude. So, I don't know what to make of that, but I was just like, how is this working? Like, she should, I mean, she wasn't strong enough to, like, keep forcing the blade down, but still, I was just like, what is happening? It was like, they were both just too horny not to, like, let things play out as they probably should have, which was her killing him. But, who knows? I guess she'll be in power, or, you know, second in command again, there's, like, a baroness. I don't know, but that was just crazy. And then we don't see her again, so I'm like, we're just left with that. And I don't even have a guess as to where that could go for, like, the last couple of episodes. So, that was just crazy. And I had to make sure that I mentioned that in the opening, because I'm like, that was just nuts. I don't even understand that. But that was a crazy opening, crazy ending, crazy episode in general. Definitely a phenomenal episode. You know, reveals about Bajie, the alliances created between Quinn and the Widow, which is fairly unfortunate. Tilda is now possibly going to have a relationship with Odessa, who is like constantly saying like, I don't think the Widow is as good as you constantly say she is. So that's not really great. Who knows what's going to happen with Waldo. Every time I see his name, it keeps saying special guest star. So I think Waldo is going to die somewhere in this season, because otherwise, if he's in the whole season, then he'd just be a regular character. But it keeps saying special guest star. And I'm just like, he's dying somewhere in this season. That's just my guess. I could easily be wrong, and for whatever reason they are still calling him a special guest star. I'm just like, I don't know. I just feel like he's going to die, because why not just have him as a normal name? Just guest starring, not, or I guess not even guest starring, just have his name there, because he's in every episode so far. Or at least since like episode 2, he's been in every episode. So, I don't know, but really good episode. Of course, we'd love to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, least favorite parts. There are a couple of things that, of course, were crazy from this episode. We have the reveal about Bajie. We have, unfortunately, Bajie, M.K, and Sunny all having to go back to the Abbots, and, of course, Vale going back to Quinn. So, I really want to know what shocked you the most by the end of this episode. Was it the fact that Vel did have to go back to Quinn? Was it the fact that they even survived? I couldn't believe that they actually killed the Abbots. Really, I thought that they would survive, but I thought it would kind of be like in the season finale where like they lived, but they couldn't possibly beat them. But it was actually kind of cool. It was like they had to use some crazy methods, but in the end, they did take out 2 out of their 3 enemies, and unfortunately, they lost one of the people on their team. But did that surprise you that they even survived? Did it surprise you that they, after all that madness, they get reunited and everything? They all have to go back to the Abbots. What shocked you the most by the end of this episode? And of course, I just want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.